So you're thinking about making a move to the Boise, Idaho area, but you seem to have some questions all centered around what is it truly like to live here in Boise? Well, today I'm going to walk through exactly that. I did some research on all the forums, message boards. I talked to past clients, past friends, not past friends, actual still current friends. But I talked to everybody. I looked at niche.com, everything out there to get some of what are the biggest questions that people have about the Boise, Idaho area. So we're gonna go through those today, and hopefully they touch on the thing that is bothering you the most. I'm Chase Dolan, your Boise realtor, and I'm gonna take you through each of these questions one by one. Of course, I am a little bit biased. I absolutely love living here, but it's not perfect for everybody. So I'm gonna try and give you that complete, honest truth about some things that you might not always hear about. And the first question that I get all the time, especially from people relocating from other states, is what are the people actually like? Are they friendly? Do they absolutely hate outsiders? What is going on with the people in Boise? On the grand scale, the people that live here in the Treasure Valley are one of the biggest pros that I can put out there for you if you're thinking about making a move here. The people here in general are extremely nice, they're extremely welcoming, they're used to that small town feel, so they want to get to know you as their neighbor. The biggest thing that drives people to not loving relocators or feeling like people are gonna do something to their car because they have a California license plate, the main fear there by some of these people is that people are gonna be relocating to the city, to the state, and they're gonna try and change everything about it. If you're relocating from California, for example, there's probably a reason for it. So if you didn't like what was happening in California, people don't want you to come to Idaho and just try and change everything. They picture you just having ultimate power and being able to change everything back to the thing that you left. Of course, most of you that I talk to, that's not your intention at all. And most people up here get that. So as long as you come in with a humble and open mind and you know that you're coming here for the better quality of life or whatever change of life that you're looking for, you will find that the people here are so welcoming. And side note, for the people that are just absolutely not welcoming, the people that will break your window because you have a California license plate, doesn't happen often. Don't be scared. Screw them. They are the assholes that you really don't want to get to know anyways, so we just kind of forget about them. We don't like them either. And if one of you is watching that, go ahead and drop your comment below. I always love to hear from you. But one of the things also when we're talking about the people here in the area, and a question that I get a lot about is what are the politics like? And this is something I won't get too far into because all of our political views, all of our viewpoints on everything, they will be different for every single person. And at the end of the day, really should have no bearing on whether you want to live here or not. As a whole, Idaho is a pretty red conservative state. And this comes with some pros and it also comes with some cons. But here in the Treasure Valley, Ada County in particular, Boise, Meridian, and Eagle, is much more balanced when we're looking at the political views and what people are looking for than some other parts of Idaho. So if you are somebody that's looking for conservative 100% through and through, you are just about as far right as you can get, there are going to be places that you're going to feel may not match that criteria as much as others. But a big impression that tends to be around our country is that every single person in Idaho thinks exactly one way. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. If you have any questions about any of the political beliefs, what you think are the best places, everything here, I can't always guide you to what the best is because I don't know who lives in every neighborhood, but I'll always give you that honest opinion of, hey, Boise and Eagle right now, they get a lot of flack out here for being more purple than the rest of the state. Does that appeal to you? Does that not? Where are you looking for? And this is a big thing depending on where you're coming from. Because of course, the big one that we always hear about is people moving from Southern California that are very blue, liberal, and they're moving up here because they either want to get away from that or whatever the difference is. But we also have it from people living in Texas and they feel like that is too red, too conservative. Idaho offers a similar type of political environment, but maybe not quite as far. Everybody's coming with their own things and each issue is very unique to you. So all of this is just to be said as a long-winded thing. There are plenty of people along all sides of the spectrum out here. You will find your community. But you do have to recognize that Idaho as a general is going to be a pretty red state. Up next, one of the big questions is, of course, what is the cost of living like in the Boise, Idaho area? And there are a few things to cover here. So home values, of course, are the big thing. That's the big expense, whether you're looking to move here or just whether you're looking to live somewhere. That's going to be one of your biggest expenses. The cost of housing, both buying a home but also renting over the last few years, has risen pretty dramatically. Right now, the median home price in Boise, for example, is just under $600,000. Out in Nampa, it's going to be closer to $400,000 to $450,000. We have a nice range, but the main issue with this really quick rise in the home prices is that we haven't seen wages, both the minimum wage and just the average salary being offered to people. Those two have not kept up. So right now we have people not making that great of a wage because that's just what Idaho has been for a while, but now they're paying these astronomical house prices. Those won't match. It's unsustainable. Now, as much as I want to acknowledge that this is an issue that I really hope our state starts to figure out, this does offer an opportunity, in all honesty, for people who are relocating here to the area. And this is why we've been one of the most appealing places to move to over the last few years. Because if you are, for example, moving from somewhere, San Francisco, LA, where you might be selling a house for $1.5 million, a much higher price, but you don't need something like that out here, you can just pay cash and you don't have to deal with that discrepancy. You can live off the wage here and have your house paid for. Or on the flip side, you might be moving from one of these other states, but you can work remotely. So you're still getting paid a better wage depending on where you're coming from, but then you can move here and take advantage of still the relatively much lower housing prices than other parts of our country. Now, when we talk about the cost of everything else outside of housing, this is something I talk about a lot on the channel, and there will be small differences based off Boise, Caldwell. The further you get out, each county is going to be a little bit different. But for the most part, groceries, power, gas, everything along those lines is going to be pretty similar. We all shop at very similar grocery stores. If you're shopping at a Fred Meyer in Eagle, in Boise, in Meridian, everything's going to cost about the same. If you're shopping at the Winco out in Nampa and you want to go to the Winco downtown Boise, things are going to cost relatively the same. You're not going to feel a massive difference. Now, as we continue to grow, this could start to change a little bit more, but as of right now, the main differences that we're seeing are in certain utilities. Water, sewer, trash is one that I noticed. Eagle just builds it very differently than Meridian, which makes the cost about 3 times as expensive. Every single city will do it separately. Every single city will do it just a little bit differently. What about things that I don't like? So this is something that I get this question a lot. There are some things that I absolutely just do not like about this area. One of which is the food scene. This isn't gonna say that there aren't some great options and some places that I highly recommend you check out. What it is saying is for Mexican food, for example, people that move here from Southern California, from Texas, they cannot find a Mexican food place that they absolutely love. And maybe you love empanadas, but there's only 1 or 2 places in our entire Treasure Valley that serve those. So you're gonna be choosing from one of them. You don't have these vast options that a Denver, that an LA, that a Dallas, all of these bigger cities just have. So when you're looking at these, you're gonna have less new options coming from different diverse types of cuisine, things that aren't already featured. And once you find your staples, those are probably gonna be what you have the majority of the time, which isn't an absolute con. But when we're looking at the food scene as someone, I like to try new things. I like to find those cool things that I haven't had before. I have noticed a big difference here in Boise than San Diego, for example, that I spent some time in at a conference a few years ago. I spent a summer in Houston. Massive difference in all of the different types of places that you can go out and try. So when you're making a move from one of these big cities, this is one of those things that can feel a little bit like a culture shock of, you're telling me I only have 3 Italian places to choose from? That feels weird. And for those of you that really like the chain restaurants, you're just craving the Red Robin, so you want to be able to make sure that you can go and find it. With the size of our town right now, we don't have 1,000 Red Robins. We only have 2 or 3 throughout the entire Treasure Valley. So you're gonna find them, you just might have to go to them. And then as I was talking about just earlier in the video, one of the things that I do not like about living here is that affordability crisis that we're seeing between the housing prices and the wages. This is something that's really pushing a lot of locals out. It's pushing people away from Boise into more of the outskirts. We're just seeing people really struggle. And this is something that as we continue to grow, we're having more companies come, our economy is flourishing. Everything about this is pointing to wages and the standard of living here really should be going up. Hopefully that starts to happen. On a similar thought, one of the things that we've just been behind with this entire growth is our public transportation here. It is not great. When we're looking at the bus system here, if you live really outside of Boise, Meridian, anywhere away from the highway, it can be very, very hard to find public transportation. So you're gonna be very car reliant. You might be bike reliant depending on where you're located, but even on that end, Boise itself is pretty bike friendly. They've done a lot of amenities. They have a lot of trails, bike lanes, everything there. But most of the other cities just haven't started to do that yet. We don't have any sort of light rail system. We don't have a lot of that public transportation and different ways to get around. So if you're somebody that likes to rely on that, you don't like to drive, or you just don't have a car because you've never needed one, just know that that's gonna be an adjustment. You're gonna be in the car most of the time. And then finally, one of the things that I don't really love about Idaho in general is right now there's a little bit of uncertainty with the future of medical care. So one of our big hospitals that just started to expand, and we saw all these locations pop out in Meridian and Eagle, Salzer Health, they're basically going out of business. So they're trying to find somebody to buy them so that they can kind of change their brand, and we still have that opportunity. But as of right now, nobody's done that. So there's a little uncertainty there. But also just the standard of healthcare here in Idaho doesn't always rank very well when we're looking nationally, especially when we're looking at pregnancy and maternal actual medical care. There are some things that I'll let you do your own research on, but there are some things that are pushing some of our best doctors, our best OBs out of the state, which is causing a little bit of an issue for anybody who's thinking about starting a family. And considering that is exactly where we're at right now, that is definitely something that's at the front of my mind. So if you're thinking about making a move here and you have any specific health concerns, you're thinking about starting a family, whatever it is, I always tell you to, but I've really started to double down. Do some research, make sure that you can find the care and the provider that you really want here in the area. And hopefully as this growth continues to happen, we will see that medical care really start to pick up its speed again. Next question that I want to talk about is, what are the best neighborhoods in the Boise, Idaho area? And it's going to sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but I always tell people this really comes down to your budget and what you're able to and willing to spend. At the end of the day, a 1 million neighborhood is not going to look the same as a $400,000 entry-level neighborhood. So depending on what you're looking for, you're really going to be drawn to certain areas or not. If you want a master plan community with a golf course, you want a couple community pools, you want all of these really cool things, and you want that big community, that's fantastic. If you want to live in Valor and Kuna, for example, and you have a budget of $700,000, that is the place that you should definitely look. But if you're trying not to spend more than $400 to $450, that's just not going to be an option. So we're going to be looking at other places that may offer some of the same things, but you got to be able to look at it and figure out, okay, what's my priority list? And at the end of the day, a lot of times that budget is just related to the proximity to Boise. Boise is going to be very expensive. Eagle is one of the more expensive, kind of that proximity to the foothills. But then Meridian's going to be right behind them. Star being right next to Eagle. If you're out in Caldwell, it's going to be much more affordable. So you might get one of those communities that has those amenities at a much better price point, which could be perfect for you. In a general sense, when we're looking at, okay, what are the most appealing areas of Boise, kind of forgetting about the budget a little bit, the closer you can get to the foothills on this north side of town, people absolutely love it because you're going to have less of that classic suburban feel. You're going to have some view homes. You're going to have bigger homes. Everything about the Highlands, the foothills, Dry Creek Ranch, they're just really appealing places. And then this corridor kind of all the way through Boise out to Eagle and even into Star along the Boise River, you're going to find some of the best homes because, again, riverfront property isn't easy to find. And some of the luxury builders that have developed around there have built some amazing homes. That complete parade style multi-million-dollar home, they're absolutely gorgeous. But on the flip side, there's some Hubble home communities out in Nampa and Caldwell, Franklin Village, for example, that have some amazing amenities on the way. And they're gonna be a little bit more in that $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 price range. Now, what about the weather? So we have all 4 seasons here in the Boise, Idaho area. And when I say that, I mean we have all 4 true seasons. We have a very distinct winter, summer, spring, and fall. This is not somewhere where we just have these mild kind of temperature fluctuations. During our winter, we typically get around 17 to 20 inches of snow every single year. This year's a little bit of an outlier. This Arctic front that everybody's been dealing with definitely gave us some more snow than usual. And then typically we get pretty cold in January. This is the coldest time of the year where we'll see temperatures in kind of the teens and 20s for a big portion of it, with the absolute coldest being this rare day where we get into the single digits. On the flip side, summer here can get pretty hot. August is gonna be probably the hottest time of the year up here. We're gonna have a few weeks that are in the mid to high 90s or sometimes even higher. This past summer, we had about a 3-week period where it was over 100 basically every single day, which my body is not made for that. I will take cold weather over hot weather every single day. But outside of these two, we get some great spring and fall weather. We get a long season for each. These are the absolute best. They're a nice middle ground to get you ready for the next season. The colors in the fall, the way everything comes to life and turns green in the spring. These are my two favorite times of the year up here. And then with all 4 of these seasons and the fact that we have a distinct 4 seasons up here, our city is set up so that there are activities and things going on to take advantage of every single one of these seasons. We have a few snowboarding hills to take advantage of the snow in the winter. In the summer, there's a ton of lakes and rivers and things to go and do so that you can actually get out and stay a little bit cooler but enjoy that weather. In the fall, there's a ton of harvest festivals all over town that you can go and check out. And the same thing in the spring, we got a few really cool flower farms. There's a few things that the wineries do. There's always something going on that's unique and you want to take advantage of in certain times of the year. Now, what about those activities? So when we're looking at Boise, Idaho in general, a lot of the activities here are gonna be outdoor related. Because of where we're located in our valley with the foothills, with the Sawtooths up north, the Owyhee's kind of a little bit more south. You're gonna have the desert down past Kuna, but then you're gonna have the Snake River, the Payette. You've got all of this natural beauty kind of located all around us here in Idaho. And that's where you're gonna find a lot of the stuff that you're gonna want to do. Most people come up here and they find at least one outdoor hobby that really becomes their thing. So take advantage of the trails, the rivers, the mountains, the foothills, the greenbelt inside of town. Find something that you really like to do, and it'll allow you to actually experience everything that Boise has to offer. This is also a very dog-friendly area. So there are a ton of dog paths, off-leash walking. You can take them up into the trails and the foothills certain days and actually have them run around off-leash. Everything here, people absolutely love dogs. A lot of the restaurants, coffee shops, bars, they'll allow dogs on their patio. Your dog will love living here. If you're into pickleball, if you're into golf, there's a lot of these kind of popping up around town. But as we're looking at our town and the overall growth, this is something where we still are missing some of the activities that people have come to know. The biggest example I can give is, again, I grew up in Colorado. We did a lot of putt-putt or mini golf when I was growing up. Even back 15, 20, 25 years ago, we had multiple options at all times to go. There were 5, 6, 7, 8 golf courses that we could go to, mini golf courses. It was always something new. Here in the Boise area, it hit me about last year, we currently have 1. Topgolf, they made it 2. So hopefully as we continue to go, there will be more opportunities for that. But I just think it's a great example to kind of highlight, right now we might not have the activity that you're looking for, or we might only have 1 or 2 opportunities for you to go and do it, but this will change as the growth comes. And if there's a certain activity that you're like, okay, this is what we do every single weekend, does Boise have something like this? Drop a comment below. I would love to hear what you all are looking for specifically. Now, a big hot button issue that always is at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, especially families, people with younger kids, is how are the schools? And while I cannot tell you exactly which ones to choose, I can point you to some great resources that you can kind of start your search on. Niche.com is going to be one, no matter where you're looking that you might want to live. Check them out. They've got all sorts of reviews on the city itself, but they also have a whole section only on the schools, how they rate them, what the rating is that they give them, everything there. Niche is a good place to start. And then of course, Great Schools is going to be another one that gives some feedback on the schools. It actually integrates with Redfin. So if you're on Redfin, you can actually kind of search it based off of the school ratings if that's going to be your main priority. But schools are definitely going to be a main driving factor on where people want to live, depending on where you're at in your life. Some of you may have already had your kids graduate high school or college and you're empty nesters. The school ratings around you really don't matter outside of some value. All right, what about the commute? What does that look like? So the first thing that I always like to point out is if you're coming from any sort of bigger city on the West Coast, Texas, really anywhere, our commute here is going to feel like nothing. For the people that have lived here for a little bit, traffic and the construction and everything has started to make it feel like it's much longer. And I'll be honest, rush hour can definitely be long, but our long commute here is around a 30 to a 40-minute commute on a bad day. From talking with a lot of you, it always cracks me up by how our expectations of a commute have changed by living here and how spoiled we actually are when you're making an hour, hour and a half, 2-hour drive to work every single day. So 30 minutes sounds pretty freaking awesome. Now, construction is definitely making this a little bit more difficult right now as we continue to grow. And one of the biggest things that I think Boise needs to improve on is that infrastructure that I talked about a little bit earlier. But there are some projects that I think will come over the next few years. And one of the ones that's already being started is that Highway 16 extension kind of on the west side of Meridian that will connect State Street to I-84. This will be a huge deal for everybody living on the north edge of town, anybody who's commuting either to or from work. This will be a major relief to a lot of these roads, Eagle Road, for example, that are just so backed up because it's one of the only ways to get there. And of course, what about the real estate market? What are the opportunities? Where do we see it going? How healthy is it? All of those questions always come up. And the great thing about Boise is we still, again, are relatively so much more affordable than a lot of our West Coast counterparts. And that is a big reason why people are relocating up here. Like I talked about earlier, there's a real opportunity here to kind of take advantage of the different situations with the home values being a little bit lower than where you might be coming from, but the wages where you're coming from may be a little bit higher. If you're able to work remote, you can really take advantage of both ends. On the whole, we saw a really nice pullback in our real estate market from 2022, kind of the end of that year, into 2023 with the interest rates rising. We saw home prices and kind of initial list prices really start to drop 15 to 20%. And this is a massive drop and something that we needed for the health of our market. We've been growing really, really quickly for the past 5 to 10 years. But even just towards the end of 2023, we've started to see things pick back up and prices are starting to go up again. There are a few factors for this and why I'm really confident in real estate in 2024 up here. Interest rates are taking an absolute nosedive over the next year. So instead of having the 8% interest rate that you were gonna get last year, there's possibilities that you'll be around 6%, maybe just a little bit less throughout this year. We're also starting to see activity and inventory pick up pretty drastically already as we're sitting in January, before that typical kind of spring launch that always happens. Something to note is up here in the Treasure Valley, new construction plays a huge role in our entire housing market. Because of the growth that we've experienced and just the population that has happened, we need more homes than we currently have built in the entire valley. So we have a ton of builders who are building a ton of communities. We have a lot of new communities popping up, getting platted. New construction is what drives our market up here. And because of that, if you are open to that idea, you can get a really, really nice home and really make it your own. As of filming this, the median house price in Ada County is just around $550,000 to $575,000. Now, that doesn't mean if you are below this for any reason, you are completely out of luck. There are plenty of options and choices below, but this is kind of that median. Now, what I will say is our kind of bottom of our actual Treasure Valley here is around 300,000. Once you get below that into the 200s, things start to get really, really sparse, and you have to be willing to make some sacrifices in the size of the home, the age, the condition. There's just certain things that you're gonna have to be willing to sacrifice. You start to get too far down the road on either end, reach out to a professional just like me, and we can kind of walk through what are your expectations, what are you looking for in a home, all of these things to make sure, is this realistic or not? Because if it's not, we don't want you to get too far and then be completely bummed out when you get here and see your options. And also, I don't want you to get your hopes up and really single in on, I wanna live in Boise with a budget of $175,000. There might be other places that just match that kind of budget for the criteria and the type of home that you want in other places. And for any of you that have reached out to me before, you know, I will always be honest with you. I am not here to completely convince you that this is the best place to live. For some people, it's fantastic. For others, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how it is. With all that being said, the final question that we're gonna talk about is is Boise worth it? And as much as I'm biased and this is my career, I can emphatically say yes, Boise is absolutely worth every penny that you will spend to live here. Some of the big highlights for this are we are still the kind of last West Coast city with a college, kind of that bigger capital city that is still somewhat affordable. We're a growing economy. We're gonna have more companies, more businesses, everything start to come here, which is just gonna help with some of the issues that we have going on. And when you look 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future, Boise as a city, as an economy, as a market is just gonna look drastically different, and it's still gonna be a fantastic place to live. So if you're sitting at home and you're like, did I miss the boat? Is Boise already too far gone? Is that really a good place, or should I be looking for the next? You have not missed the boat. Boise is still growing and you are gonna love living here. As a whole, we have some great access to the outdoors with everything here locally, with the foothills, the mountains, the trails, everything that I always talk about. Idaho as a whole has the most public designated wilderness space of any state in our country. In the center of our state, when you're looking at very north of kind of CDA, and then you have the Treasure Valley down here, this entire portion in the center is mostly just the Boise National Forest, sawtooths. There is so much untapped potential up there for you to go out and explore and really bathe in this just natural beauty. And then when we're looking at the size of our city, even though we are growing at around 240,000 people in Boise, that is still a very small town for a capital city kind of urban center. As of right now, I still don't know if we've crossed 1 million people in our entire Treasure Valley. So this will still feel like a much slower pace of life compared to other places around the country that you might be looking at. So what do you think? Were there any of these questions that you were like, no, I completely disagree with you? Do you think Boise, Idaho is still worth it? Drop a comment below. If you have any specific questions on Boise, relocating to the area in general, all of my information is down below. I would love to find a way that I can help, even answer just one more question. But until then, I hope that you learned something, and I'll see you all on the next one.